Coming up on this edition of Rev Culture, lots of sports car talk. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Rev Culture. I'm Todd Lewis. Coming up on the program, lots of sports car talk. Eric Kunz is the TCA title holder from the Sports Car Championship Canada this past season. We'll talk about his outstanding year. And Chris Bai is the driving force behind the SCCC. He joined me to talk about how far the series has come in a few short seasons. Chris, you just completed year number 4 with SCCC. How are you progressing towards your original goals, and what lies ahead in the future, generally speaking, for SCCC?
Yeah, I think things are progressing nicely. It's been a pretty massive challenge, but the team at FEL has done, I think, a pretty stellar job in launching the platform. And one thing I think we needed to do was there was a heavy investment for the first few years to make sure that we got off on the right foot. And to one of the things that I told our financial team here at FEL with the investment is when we launched it, it couldn't have been just okay. We really needed to knock it out of the park, and we really needed it to be something different and special. And I think we've achieved that. And then now we can, there's a big push on attracting new teams, new drivers. I think we've proven ourselves that, the original mandate was to help launch Canadian drivers and teams. And, when you look on the sports car side of what we've done, our very first GT4 champion, Marco Signoretti with Multimatic, is currently in Europe driving a GT4 Mustang with Multimatic. And yeah, he did have a relationship with them, but I think the Sports Car Championship Canada gave him a chance to, to really understand what it's like to race in a professional racing series and what's kind of expected of a driver both on and off the racetrack. And then, if you look at, I think the latest and an example that we're very proud of is Zach Revanier. Zach drove our TCR car, the FEL TCR car, and won the TCR championship. Then he drove a McLaren with our friends at FAF, won our GT4 championship. And then last year he got invited over to run the Porsche Sprint Cup in the US. He won that championship. And now he's in the hunt last weekend at Road Atlanta, which I was lucky enough to be there. Peter Lockhart and I went down. Zach won the race on the first race on Thursday or Friday, and then race number 2 he finished 3rd. So he's in the championship hunt. I believe he's 3rd or 4th in points. But Zach's a prime example of what we have. The reason we launched the Sports Car Championship. And now we have last year's TCR champion, Dean Baker, with his son, Sam, running a partial IMSA series this year, including last weekend at Road Atlanta. And they're running a full program for 2025 in IMSA. And while we hate to lose these teams from Canada, that's why we started out. We've got Jack Polito, last year a GT4 champion, this year's GT4 champion. He goes and wins an IMSA race at CTMP. I think motorsports North American wide and beyond are sitting back and taking notice, because everybody who moves on and leaves us and goes on to bigger challenges, the showing that they put on is something they can all be proud of, and including our friends at Tooth Autosport, Travis and Trevor Hill. They're down in IMSA running LMP3 and various cars, and they're super competitive. Our current Radical champion, Kenny Riedman, he has an LMP3 ride for the last race of this year. So yeah, we're super excited with what's happening.
It's clear that you've provided a launching pad or a stepping stone, however you want to describe it, for drivers and teams to move to other levels. But I think the first step that you did was provide stability in the sports cars in Canada to allow competition and high levels of competition for teams.
Yeah, 100%. When we started this, we committed to ourselves and to the motorsport world in Canada that we would only run homologated cars. And, it's different than, when I was racing 100 years ago, we didn't have homologated cars, and whoever built the fastest mousetrap, everyone just bought that mousetrap, and that's what you drove. Um, I think the fact that, if you win a championship in a homologated series, whether it's TCA, TCR, GT4, or our next homologated class coming up for 2025, which we'll talk about, it means something. And when somebody like Larry Holt says that, our first year, when he said for the first time in decades, Multimatic has a reason to race in Canada, that's something that we're super proud of. And to get, a stamp of approval from Larry and Sean and all the guys at Multimatic, I think tells us that we're doing something right.
Since you teased it already, let's talk about GT3 coming in. You'll be up to 4 classes now in SCCC. That's great.
I will, but let me just clarify one thing. There has been some confusion, and my phone's been blowing up a little bit. So we're not running GT3 cars. We're running GT3 Cup cars. So we're not, people don't have to worry about, a GT3R showing up run by a full IMSA team that's capable of doing 114s at CTMP. That's not, and not current Porsche Carrera Cup cars. That's not what we're running. So we're still working on a rules package, but it will be previous generation GT3 Cup cars that have competed in Canada, that a number of them live in Ontario and Quebec. And these drivers and teams have had these cars, sitting since Porsche decided not to run GT3 Cup in Canada, and decided to go off into other directions. There's a number of cars around and available. The cars, from what we understand, will be very similar to the speeds of GT4. And then, there's been some comments about the TCR car speeds. That's reality of multi-class racing. If you want to move on to IMSA and you get into a GTD car at CTMP that's, doing 115s, 117s, give or take the driver and car, you're out there with GTP cars that do 104s, 105s. And they're doing 100 or 120 kilometers an hour faster. So it's something that drivers need to get used to, and they're going to live in sports cars. Multi-class racing is a reality from Le Mans on down, and our sporting directors and race directors do everything in their power to keep everyone on the track safe, and also, while at the same time protecting their investments. We're going to do a couple things different with TCA next year on restarts, just to kind of let the faster cars get ahead of them. But yeah, we're super excited about the GT3 Cup class. We will have more details out in the next 7 to 10 days is our goal. But yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
So starting one race series is one thing. You decided you'd start two because you also brought Radical Cup Canada in at the same time. And that's another series that has proven to be very successful for a few years.
Yeah, Radicals have been great, along with sports cars. So Radical community has really embraced what we're doing. And again, it's expensive. It's more expensive than what they've done in the past. But, to put on a high level professional race series there's investment in it, and it's expensive. We had about 18 cars average last year. We've had 4. Our last race was at La Circuit Mont Tremblant, which is now Piste Mont Tremblant, I believe, new name change. One of the most amazing racetracks anywhere in the world, in my opinion. The area is spectacular. The racetrack is stunning. We had some noise challenges, but we're coming up with some solutions. And at the very last race, we only had one car that was black flagged for noise. So yeah, we're doing a lot on the Radical side. Our Radical drivers have stepped up since the first year significantly. If you look at the 1340 cars that we only run one class, which we're happy with, the SR3 1340. When we joined the US guys in at Toronto Indy, to the 1340 cars, I think our pole was 1.2 seconds faster than the US pole. We're super proud of all the Radical drivers, and they all say it. The competition level has just been moving up and up and up, and it's some guys have come back that were there 2-3 years ago, and they're just like, wow, things are different now. Like, everybody's flying, everyone's going so fast, which is really awesome.
It's been great to see the success of both the Radicals and the sports cars in just their first few years. What have been some of your biggest challenges in these years?
Hmm. Well, I mean, the biggest one has been the investment. It's been significant, and maybe I don't really complain about it. It just is what it is. And, we get heat from the teams to try and lower prices and make it more affordable. Racing has just gotten outrageously expensive. The budgets that it costs nowadays compared to, when we were racing, it's many, many times more than what it has been. So I think that's been, the budgets have been the biggest challenge. It, it's been, I think other challenges, just picking the right schedule, doing what's right for the teams. We have stuck to, we went back to 5 doubleheader weekends, which is what we'll do next year for 2025. We're shooting for 1 race a month, which gives our gentlemen drivers and, a lot of these team owners have cottages and boats and whatnot. So it gives them a chance to enjoy summer, which is very short, as we know, and you're not spending every weekend at the racetrack. So I think that, it's been getting the tracks on board. I think has been a little bit of a challenge, and we want to spread out. There's some tracks that we currently don't go to that we'd like to. So yeah, I think that's it. And getting the car count and just, this time of year it's silly season, so everyone's kind of like, I think playing poker a little bit as to what they plan on doing for next year. But yeah, I think again the financial investment has been the biggest challenge, and then finding sponsorship has been an enormous challenge. And we're still, we've been really close to having a title sponsor, but we want to make sure it's the right one. We're not going to just pick somebody, who's going to spend a little bit of money because we need them. We want to make sure that it's a company that blends well with Michelin. So our biggest supporter is our presenting sponsor, Michelin. They've been with us since the beginning. We just signed a new 3-year contract. We couldn't be happier with the relationship. And it's not just a financial arrangement. They give us, I think, what the majority of the racing community around the globe would admit, the best racing tires in the industry. They give us amazing technical support each and every weekend. They have engineers at the racetrack communicating with the teams, looking at the tires, answering questions. They help us with test days. They gave one of our winners this year got a Michelin restaurant experience in Toronto, and that was the Blanchette Motorsport team, and they posted a bunch of stuff on social media and said it was the most amazing dining experience they'd ever had. So Michelin brings more than just a financial partner and product. They bring a lot more to the team, and they really are a partner.
What I still notice now, as when you started this venture 4 years ago, your optimism and your positivity about sports cars and growing radicals as well in Canada as a viable market is still there. In fact, I think it's stronger than ever.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe in what we're doing. That's when we started this, my wife said, "The hell are you thinking?" So it's been, and I agreed with her many times, especially the first year. It was somewhat challenging. I think it's needed, and I've said it for the last couple of decades. We grew up in the heyday of the 80s and the 90s in Canadian motorsports, when there was an unlimited number of series. There was beer money, there was tobacco money. Players was, obviously played a big role in so many careers. And Canada has launched, an amazing number of high level racing careers. You look at, Ron Fellows and Scott Goodyear and Greg Moore and, Jacques Villeneuve. I mean, it really is endless, the number of drivers that made a living coming out of Canada. And then when the beer money and the tobacco money went away, we all kind of just sat back, and I think there was a little bit of shock at the beginning. Where's the next James Hinchcliffe? Where's the next Zachary Robichon? Where's the next Roman DeAngelis coming from? And there was nowhere. There was no homologated racing. There was a couple of homologated series, but they were mixed in with other things, and there's no path. And I think with radicals and a path to prototypes, and sports cars and a path into SRO or IMSA, with the drivers that we talked about earlier that are building careers and have an opportunity to make a living. I think at Road Atlanta there was 8 or 9 Canadians that are making a living driving race cars, and that's awesome.
One of the very few times that I don't actually feel pain is when I'm behind the wheel of a race car.
It's been a quick rise to a championship for Eric Kunz. In just his second year of sports car racing, he claimed the TCA class championship in the Sports Car Championship Canada. Eric, you had a lot of visits to the top step of the victory podium this past season. Is this the kind of year that you really dream about having?
Yes and no. It's one of those things where you learn more from your failures than from your successes. So last year I feel like I learned way more. Still a very hard year though, with Robert Cipriani chasing me down most of it and having some really good battles. Um, but yeah, for sure, it was yes and no to the. It was a good year, but yeah, obviously, you learn a lot more from when you're chasing somebody than when you're being chased.
But you didn't mind winning all those races either, did you?
No, it's a pretty good feeling to win most of those races.
Understandable. You had probably one of the most animated celebrations when you got out of the car at CTMP. It was during the final weekend of the season. You won the race. You clinched the championship. You let out this giant scream of excitement. Was this just kind of all the emotions coming out at once?
Yeah, definitely. And it was even leading up to that point, like final lap, I was having to like rub my eyes, so I was tearing up a little bit. And in the car, I was just as excited. Like it's such an overwhelming feeling, with all the emotions, like the joy, the relief. Yeah, it was just it's you can't really explain how it feels. It's just so many things all at once.
Most racers start their careers earlier than age 17. How did you happen to get into karts and begin racing your career then?
Well, COVID hit and I'm a big gamer. So I was playing way too many video games. And my mom said, I have to go outside and find something to do. She said she would support me with anything until I told her I wanted to go skydiving. Um, which she promptly said, okay, maybe not anything. And then I started go karting. I said, do you know what? I have to go outside. I want something that's going to give me that adrenaline rush. So I started go karting at Goodwood Kartways with their Arrive and Drive program, and then quickly made my way up into Rock Senior. Did 2 years of that, and then said, "Hey, let's hop into a sports car."
And had some success in sports cars. I don't know how much you advertise this, but you have a rare disease. Interestingly, you say being in the car and driving gives you relief. Tell me about that whole set of circumstances.
Yeah, so I have a rare disease called caposiform lymphangiomatosis. It's a lymphatic disease that causes me to overproduce lymphatic fluid, and it ends up leaking around my lung, which causes chronic pain. So one of the very few times that I don't actually feel pain is when I'm behind the wheel of a race car. So it's a great relief for me, and it's something I love doing. So I'm very happy that it can be a little bit of a relief from the pain.
Have you sought out information as to why this is, or is it just kind of an adrenaline thing?
I don't really know. I've talked to quite a few doctors about it, and there's two kinds of thoughts. Adrenaline is a crazy drug that can help you with pain. It's one of those fight or flight response hormones. So it could be that. And then there's some other things that cognitively could be affecting it that some more recent research has come out about. So not really sure what it is, but there's something that is doing it, and I'm happy to keep having it happen. So
will this in any way limit the potential you have for your motorsports career?
I don't think so. I've been racing with it my entire career. I don't know any way other to race than with it. So I think that it gives me a different set of challenges than other drivers, but it just gives me something else to overcome and something else to push me to be better.
Is this what also led to you being so socially active? For instance, you're a Sick Kids ambassador, and I think it was great that you had so many kids out to so many different races this year.
Yeah, for sure. I've been a Sick Kids patient my whole life. Now I'm kind of in that in between where there's no one to transfer my adult care to full time. So I'm half adult care, half Sick Kids still. But yeah, giving back to sick kids is something that's really important to me. So that's why I've chosen to do it in this way, have sick kids out to the track to have the experience that I wish I could have had when I was their age.
You also do a lot of fundraising for charitable causes.
Yeah, I do my best. Last year we did fundraising exclusively for sick kids. This year I'm taking more of a step back from that side to focus more on the experience side for sick kids. But I will be taking part in the Racing for Kids initiative. I believe it's this January, where it's a sim race where people sign up and they get matched with a pro driver, and you raise money for the sick kids charity, and they have different prizes based on how much money you raise.
You're a very typical racer in that, okay, you've accomplished one goal and now you start to set your sights on the next one. So what are you looking at for 2025? Will you be back in SCCC? Will you go to TCR, GT4, or do you have other ideas in mind?
There's a lot of different opportunities that have come up that I'm taking time to look at and to fully analyze to see what would be best for my future career. There is potential that I'll be back in the SCCC, and there's also the potential that I might be down in the US next year. So it's kind of all up in the air. As you know, they call it silly season for a reason. Never quite know where you're going to be until the start of the season. So yeah, just looking at all the options currently and figuring out what's next.
Tell me a bit about the process of doing that, evaluating. You evaluate teams, do you look at series? And of course, the financial picture comes into it too.
Yeah, like you said, all of it is a big part, especially the financial side of things. Where do sponsors want me to be? Where's that money going to take me? Whether or not we can afford it. It's like the step in budget from the TCA to TCR, GT4, and even in the SCCC is a fairly large step up. Then going down to the US, that's also a large step up. So it's really dependent on the financials. But on top of that, I want to make sure I'm with a good team that not only wants my best interest at heart, but theirs as well. I think it goes both ways for a driver and a team. And having team members that I can really form a strong bond and relationship with, I think is very important to me as well.
100% though, you'll be in a car next year?
It's looking that way right now.
That will do it for this edition of Rev Culture. Don't forget you could catch up on past episodes by going to the Rev TV YouTube channel. That's also where you will find editions of Speed Chronicles. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.